Alright everybody, welcome to the channel and welcome to a one of a 6-part series for Wartales, where I'm kind of going to just really go over and talk about all of the classes, kind of ways how to play them, or how I play them at least, best ways to use them both inside of the fighting map and then on the world map, and their professions, and just a few little things here and there to try to help direct how you want to be using each of the different classes in the best way that works for me. Whenever I play on the hardest difficulty, and this is usually what I do as just a staple to make it so it works as best as I can. Now obviously there'll be other ways that you can go about these classes, how you can use them, how you build them, what stats you go on, so on and so forth. Obviously it's up to you how you want to use them, but if you're looking for a way that for sure works and you can kind of build your own build around, this is going to be one of the 6 videos that'll help you. So with that being said, we can just go ahead and get into the first one. Alright, and now we're here with the Spearman, which is honestly probably my favorite class after the Swordsman. The Spearman is kind of used as in a sense, a utility and control type character. Now, you can only have one weapon, which is just a pitchfork or a spear, and what this does is you knock them back 1 meter, and the damage is doubled if used from a distance. The weapon has 3 range, so basically you don't want to get into direct melee with the enemy, you just want to push them back a little bit, and you do far more damage doing that. With that being said, your utility is first aid. Now this is kind of what I go. If I start with a Spearman, I will get first aid, because again, I will show when we get to the skills, you'll see why I like to have the first aid, but basically you're going to be standing next to a teammate a lot to either help them disengage, keep enemies back, whatever it might be. So because you're doing that, you're not doing a crazy amount of damage. So it's kind of either your offense or your defense. He's not offense, so he's defense. And first aid can really help your team a lot. Now you can do run. When you hit enemies, it's going to push them back. However, you're not going to get that double damage bonus. So if you're really, really riding on that double damage bonus, you can get run. However, I feel like it is kind of a waste when you could have heal instead. But it's how you want to do it. Then you have Wrath. Now, you can make Wrath work. However, again, you are going to need to be close range in order to use this. You can't use it from 3 meters away. It has to be in melee. Now, you could hit somebody and then move up and then use Wrath. That's totally a possibility, and that is something that you could do if you want your Spearman to be a little bit more damage oriented. That is something you could do, but again, I think first aid is just the best one to have. Then, when you go to your traits here, can kind of pick whatever you want. Now the Spearman also uses strength over dexterity, so don't get nimble, you would go strong. It's ultimately however you want to do. I usually go, hardworking's okay, bloodthirsty is fine. A lot of times I'll go volunteer, just because the professions that he's going to have, it's not going to be as important of ones, as we'll see pretty soon here in the video. But it's just nice to not have to worry about as much pay, because once you start to get late game, your people are going to start costing upwards of 30 to maybe even 50 gold, depending on how you have them set up. So getting that 10% might only seem like 3 or 5 gold, but once you get into the late game, that 3 or 5 gold is going to add up to hundreds very quickly. So that's just me. Obviously, you can do it however you want to, but this is kind of what my Spearman would look like if I'm setting him up right from the start. Alright, now guys, we have here is our Spearman, or Pikeman, because of his trait, but the guy that's going to be using the spear. And we're going to kind of go over his class here and kind of see what works well with him. One thing I wanted to state beforehand, you can make this guy your captain or lieutenant, because the galvanized troops makes it so you gain 1 valor for every nearby ally, and your Spearman's usually kind of be in the clump of your soldiers, or you can have him be a lieutenant and he does tactical order, which he forces an ally directly next to him, and I'm talking you have to be directly next to him like you were going to melee, as it states there, melee, and it gives them an attack of opportunity. Now your Spearman is kind of, how I play them, is kind of going to be supporting, your front line. So tactical order works. And with supporting the front line, we'll kind of look at it here with our specialization. So you have Valorous Audacity, which every time you end your turn next to an enemy and not engaged, you gain 1 Valor point. Not that great, because with a lot of Spearmen, you're either going to be engaged in enemy combat, or you're going to have pushed them back with the knockback of what the weapon does by default as its passive. So you're not really getting a lot of Valor with this. Valorous Victory, every time you kill an enemy, you gain 1 Valor point. Now, depending on how you build your Spearman, you actually can output a lot of damage. So this one is a viable one, but you have to build around that, which can be a little bit more difficult, but not impossible. You just have to, make sure you have certain gear and that stuff. Instead of just putting the best gear on there, you have to get certain stuff in order to make it work. And finally, you have Valorous Support, which every time you end your turn next to an ally and not engaged in combat, you gain 1 Valor point. And that is incredibly well, because as I stated, I use my Spearman to support the front line as like the second line. So we'll see here in just a minute why this support one works so well. So when we look at your kind of trees, your first tree is the Harpooner, which gives you piercing throw. So you basically throw the spear and you deal 15 damage to all enemies. And then the first one hit gets bleeding, which they lose 20% of their max HP. Now, piercing throw can do, it only does 15 damage, but you can hit like 4 enemies, sometimes even more, depending on the certain angle of it. So, I mean, if you hit 4 enemies, you're doing 60 damage, right? So, I mean, it's not too bad. It only costs 1 Valor point. It puts bleeding on the first one. It's not too bad. Downside is you can also hit your own people. But it's not too terribly bad. It's not the best thing ever, but you can definitely make it work. Especially if, like I said, the spear already has a little bit of attack range, you're pushing enemies back and that stuff. Having this definitely can work. Your next one is Herald. Apply Fury to all allies in the area. Increases the damage of their next attack by 50%. This is actually pretty good. You can do this and you can make your teammates do more damage. So if you're playing as like a support kind of, which I do play my Spearman like this one's actually not too bad. It actually helps out quite a bit. It makes you kill stuff faster. Now, it's only a 4-meter range, so you got to be pretty close. But again, if you're playing and your people get grouped up, this would be a really good thing to have, actually. You probably won't be using this every single turn, but in certain situations, this can be really, really strong. Then you have Pikemen, which is what I think this is my favorite one in the game. You target a specific area. When an enemy enters the area, you perform 1 attack of opportunity and you stop them. So basically, I walk up to my swordsman and I end my turn next to him, so I would get the support. But before I end the turn, I attack the guy on the left and I push him back a square. And then I set up Spear Wall. So now that guy on the left, he's upset. He wants to go attack my swordsman. He wants to get behind my swordsman and attack him. But now I have the Spear Wall. I stop him from moving, and then he also doesn't get to attack. So basically, Spear Wall cancel. You do an attack, and then you also cancel the enemy's next turn. And if you're stationed right next to an ally, you can do this indefinitely, because you use this to -1 Valor, but then you end your turn next to an enemy, and you get 1 Valor back. So you can... If you watch my videos, you'll see that I'm just constantly putting spear walls down every single turn with both of my spearmen. Just always getting free attacks, always stopping enemies. It's incredibly powerful. So that's why Valorous Support is so good, because it works with the pikemen incredibly well. Your level 5 talent, which is your second tier of passives, is when next to an ally, this unit has brutality. Your damage is increased by 30%. Now you could argue, okay, well you have Valorous Support. You have pikemen. You literally just told us that you end your turn next to enemies every single or to allies every single turn. Why do you not have one that makes it where you do more damage if you're next to an ally? And the reason being is because there are other skills still. But if you want to do this, if you build like this definitely works. You can make it so that way your spearman can be one of your damage dealers. 30% is a lot of damage. I go from doing 30 damage to 40 damage now. Might not seem like a lot, but if you play Wartales, 30 damage compared to 40 damage, that's a crazy jump. So, I mean, this definitely works. So Team Spirit is absolutely one of the really, really good skills that the Spearman has in total. However, you also have Fervent Support. Each time an adjacent ally is attacked by an enemy in close combat, deal 15 damage to the enemy. So, that 30 damage, that is 40 damage now. I instead do a normal attack for 30, and then I can do a second attack for 15. So now I do 45 damage, if you can follow that math. That was kind of weird math, but however, the other thing with this too is if you get your Spearman next to multiple allies who are engaged, you're attacking not only with your attack, but possibly the spear wall and multiple other attacks. You can attack up to 4, maybe even 5 times in a turn because of Fervent Support, depending on how you position your team. So this can output a crazy amount of damage if you set it up properly. Then of course the third one is Sweet Spot. Ranged attacks apply destabilization for 1 round. So basically if you attack from not directly melee, because spears can attack from up to 3 meters, if you attack from that range, you reduce their guard. So that way they take more damage for 1 round, which it can be really, really good. Again, it's not a bad skill by any means. I just think that there is a better one. So basically the level 5, this is like one of the better sets of passives for any of the types of troops, because I mean, obviously some are a little bit better than others, but none of these are particularly bad. They kind of can work with every build basically. So I mean, it's up to you what you want. I just prefer Fervent Support. Then we get to our level 8, where you can get Preparedness, which if this unit ends their turn while not engaged in combat, they gain Fury. So damage is increased by 50% of the next attack. I'm probably going to go this because I don't want my Spearman. I have Spear Wall, so I'm never going to be in combat. I'm always going to be pushing enemies away. This 50% extra damage is going to be incredible. So, I mean, that's just really, really good. You have Harnessing Strength. Damage increased by 5% for each bonus applied to this unit. Now, bonuses can be a little bit weird. It can be a little bit hard to get to. Obviously, you can get Brutality. If you get Brutality, then this is obviously not too terribly bad. But getting bonuses kind of have to come from other troops. Now, if you go this, you can get Fury, you can get Brutality. So then you can get a 10% bonus, but these ones here, the bonus ones, is you have to do a lot of preparing into it, and for it being a Spearman, your Spearman's not going to be your main damage dealer. He's going to do a lot of damage, but it's going to be damage coming from being defensive most often. So having it so that the more bonuses that you use, putting bonuses on a ranger or maybe even a brute might be better than putting it on a Spearman, if you can pick which ones to put it on. So it's not a bad one, but there's definitely better ones here. Then of course you have Last Push. Applies to this unit when targeted. Apply to this unit and the targeted ally as many rage as they have debuffs. Now, this one can be good. If the enemies are putting a bunch of debuffs on you, you got hit by poison, you got hit by a destabilization, you got hit by a movement thing, you got hit by fire, you got hit by bleeding, all these different things. This can definitely start to boost up a lot. But I don't ever see you, unless you purposely put your people in weird type of harm's way, I don't realistically ever seeing this doing more than 3 times being stacked. And that's only for 1, right? You click yourself and an ally, you might have 1 and your ally might have 3. So ever going above 15% is realistically probably not going to happen. However, now 15% extra damage is a lot of damage. But if you compare it to something like here, it's a 50% damage. So you can have 15% damage maybe sometimes, or you can have 50% damage every turn. So it just kind of, again, it's situational, but Preparedness is just, in my opinion, the best one in this, and this is what I will be going when I get level 8. Then, of course, we have our last set of trees, which is Second Weapon. So you can equip the second spear or pole arm and swap it in combat. Now, there's not a lot of cases where this would be good because majority of spear weapons or pole arms all work the same, and they push back and they do a little bit of damage. Now, there are some weapons that are really, really good, and I haven't seen too many different variety of the spears yet in this playthrough, so maybe I'm wrong with this, but this one right now just doesn't seem as good. It's definitely cool, but I just don't think it would be as good as some of these other ones, including this one. This one's not bad. Alacrity. This unit has 25% chance to dodge ranged and AoE attacks. So if there's an enemy that's got a two-handed weapon, you have a 25% chance to dodge that, which could come in handy because if you play them how I do, there's a good chance that you're putting this guy next to other units. So those AoE attacks are probably going to happen. Now, you're still setting yourself up to get hit with multiple people, and it might not be ideal, but I mean, it's a little bit of a failsafe kind of. And then you have Unstoppable, which is another really, really good one. This unit becomes unstoppable and can pass through the enemy ranks. So basically, you can run through enemies to get to different positions, and you can set up your spear wall in other spots and kind of see how that works. I'm kind of torn. It's like a split three ways. I don't know which of these is the best. I have two spearmen, and I'm gonna take two of these and just kind of see how they feel. I don't really have an opinion on any of these. Like, any of them can be good, and they're all three kind of situational. So it's ultimately up to you. If I had to pick one, I'm probably going to actually pick second weapon, even though I kind of just downplayed it a little bit. Just because I know there are a couple different weapons that are decently good. Some of them apply like destabilization and stuff like that, but might not do as much damage. So maybe what I would do is I would attack with destabilization, swap out, and then use spear wall so to a higher tier, more damage weapon. So that way my spear wall does more damage. That's probably how I would play it. Then obviously we go here to our professions like we have been, and we look at everything. And Alchemist and Thief completely off the table. He's not dexterity. Don't even look at these. Now, if your Spearman's going to be more frontline, you can go Constitution. I would save Constitution for other ones. You can go Strength, coming from Miner or Blacksmith. Miner gives just Blacksmith, I think, actually. I don't know if Miner gives Strength and level ups. Blacksmith is really, really good. Tinker, I like to go the critical hit, just because of the Spear Wall. Might be nice. Or you can obviously go one of your willpower ones here. Spearmen don't really have, like... Your Spearmen aren't going to be doing a crazy amount of damage. They're not going to be tanking very much. So you're in a little bit of a weird spot. So the willpower ones don't help your team as much as other ones, in my opinion. For like +1 willpower, +1 constitution, it's like, might as well just take constitution, right? Might as well get a little bit tankier. So the Spearman is my second favorite class, but I don't feel like any of the professions are like crazy good with them. So these are usually some of the ones I'm going to get. I needed a tinkerer right off the bat, so Tony, our lieutenant here, is our tinkerer. But ultimately, you can kind of do what you want with it. Just don't do dexterity ones. That's all it is. This Spearman doesn't benefit too heavily from any of them, but they benefit a decent amount from any of them. Except for dexterity. Just please don't do these. That's all I have to say. But I go Tinker, or I go Fisherman, or Angler, I should say. And, I mean, that's just how I play the Spearman in Wartales.